Hello, friends. I'm DJ Lance Rock, and I have to say, Rock and Roll Grad School is awesome!
This is Rock and Roll Grad School with your hosts, Heidi Hedquist and Luke Poling, Yankee Hotel Podcast.
Hello, kiddies. We are going to have a real good time together because we are enjoying Cabo Wabo tequila.
And
straight
Santo.
up. And Santo. Sorry, lest I forget. And we are talking today with Tulot, a really interesting group of musicians dedicated to just goodness and niceness and supporting each other and supporting other people. And it's you missed out on the conversation, and that is your loss. And they have their debut record out. It's an interesting, almost feels like a collective of musicians, jazz, hip hop, a little bit of everything, got together. We're going to record a couple singles and then ended up making a record because it was just going so well.
That's awesome.
So we have that. While this is not going to air on the correct date, I would just like to wish you a happy Last Waltz Day
Thank you.
for all who celebrate. And I was this many years old when I realized that I was alive when the last waltz happened.
Really?
Yeah. I was 1.5 months, but I was alive.
You were alive. I was
So-
alive too.
Yeah. So it's just nice to know that I was there the same time as they were, you know?
It is. It is nice to know that you were.
What else? There was something else I wanted to bring up. I'm not gonna say go through all my tequila photos. I think that's it, I guess. I mean, it feels like there's a lot of stuff and there's not a lot of stuff happening at the same time too. This weird,
I mean, there's a lot of stuff. I don't know if we want to talk about it now or else another time, but
Right.
We have
Well-
albums to discuss. We have documentaries to discuss.
yes, we have a lot to.
We can discuss that at a later date if you'd like.
Yes. I noticed Sparks has put up their Christmas store is now open.
Well, we need to get on that.
So if you want a sweater with Ron and Russell on it, that is available now.
I clearly do.
Yeah. Along with wrapping paper with their heads on it.
Yes.
And I thought the Cheap Trick wrapping paper was going to be, I have to get this. But now there's another option.
I mean, we could wrap for days.
We really could.
There's a place where my arms can't reach. There's a distance between us, and I feel it deep. But if you ever need anything, call for me, 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 call for me.
So how does this all come about? Because this group seems like more than just a music group. There's something about it that just seems more than just a group of people who make really good music together.
Yeah, the band kind of started with Chase and Omar meeting. Omar Jawar, his father, Bishop Omar, he was very sick and he was in Wichita. So Omar, we call him Two was moving up and back between Dallas, Texas, and Wichita for some amount of time, and he ended up befriending Chase, and the two of them started playing some music together. And I think the first song they did was Sissy Strut. And they were like, hey, this is really fun. We want to do this with more people. And they were like, yeah, we need some keys. And through a friend, they ended up meeting Sage Judd, who's the keyboard player for the band. and then they were looking for some bass, and they actually had Rudy Love come in and play synth bass with them initially. But Rudy's also a really great singer, great songwriter, great keyboard player. It's really not anything he can't do. But it's funny. Yeah, I guess the over time they were trying to explore like getting it more into electronic elements, and they were looking for somebody that knew stuff about Ableton. And so they were in Dallas, and that's where I live, and that's where Omar lives. And through a mutual connection of Robert Spud Seawright, he and two have known each other forever, and he introduced me to the guys and basically had me come in to do like a Ableton like session with them, kind of teach them how to use the software. And I knew that they had synth bass, but they didn't have anybody playing electric bass. And so I went in and we ended up like jamming on the lunch break or something like that, and it was super fun. And so we all kind of started to connect and was like, oh, this is interesting. And Chase had asked me basically to join the band, and so I started rehearsing with the guys and checking things out. And so, this concept of entropy is something that we've talked about a lot as a band, and that's the name of our title. That's the name of the title of the record, rather.
Right.
And the concept of hey, Two's coming in here.
Yep.
The concept of entropy is just like if you're struggling, right? Or think of it this way, right? So second law of thermodynamics, that's what the band name is, right? Second law of thermodynamics. Entropy is what that is. And it's when the heat leaves something, right? Like you have a hot cup and eventually it gets cold. And like we kind of use this in the concept of like decay, like things falling apart, things pulling apart, and like with several of everybody in the band rather going through some really challenging times. And I think that we kind of saw music as a way to unite and stay together and kind of really move forward. And then we also had this concept of bringing in social change. And so with that aspect, imagine being able to use the platform that we build to share with others and help people. And so that's kind of what led us to wanting to work with Phoenix, which they are a group that's focused on self-accountability through fitness to help people overcome addiction. And it's a really amazing experience. And we've also experimented with like doing sober spaces at events and having mocktails and things like that at events, so that people can be a part of the experience but not have to deal with the challenges that can come from being there.
The social side of things is not always, obviously music is always there in some form or another to encourage, to lift up, or to kind of commiserate with. The idea of doing something that is so designed inherently to help people and designed on this positivity of let's all work together. Is that just naturally everyone's outlook? Because I feel like most bands, you can't get anyone to agree on a menu, let alone like, here's what the
Bro,
record's about.
that's what everybody says, man. It's like everybody's like, man, how did y'all, come together? How's everybody so happy all the time? Is this, real? Like, and surprisingly, man, I think it's about figuring out like what it is that we agree on, figuring out like at its core, like why are you doing what it is that you're doing? Of course, we all can play music, we all want to come together, we all want to make a living, make some money, all that good stuff. And I think one of the things that helps us is that we're not just doing it for ourselves. This is truly something that we're looking to do for folks out there, man, to, have a crazy experience. Anytime we do a show, anytime we, think about, a lick to put in a song, man, it's all about, man, what is it? Of course, it's something that is coming from our heart, something that we care about, but at its core, again, it's about, man, how is this going to translate to affect somebody else, at the live show? And then of course, like Trusco was hitting on, beyond just the musical elements and the experience that people get when they come to a show, it's about how does that impact, translate from the show to, really, really, really impact somebody. And again, we can't help people overcome addiction and fight poverty and criminal justice reform, all of this kind of social change. We can't do that on our own. There are change leaders out here, man, doing the work, man, that are passionate about this stuff, man, but they don't always have a voice necessarily. And it's like, okay, well, if we have the platform, if we can bring the people in, give them a kick-ass show, do the work, right? And like do that, right? I mean, all we're asking the change leader to do is just show up, man, just be there, right? Again, at our last show, I mean, man, it was funny. I'll never forget, man, we were in was it Taos, bro? We had that fan that came up to it. One of the ladies that
Yeah,
came up and was
Taos.
just like, oh my God, man, like this song, like y'all's music is helping me overcome addiction and like that. And it was funny. She was there, but I was looking at her boyfriend and I was just like, man, like this stuff is really affecting him and like probably that household. And like, I mean, so you end up seeing stuff like that in real time, and it's just hard to avoid that when we go through the thick of it as a band, and it's just like, man, why are we doing this? Like, remember that girl in town, or one comment on Call For Me, which is like at almost 200,000 views in a month. Just saying,
But
but
just, just as a throwaway, yeah.
yeah,
Just
throw it out
leave it there.
there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Shameless plug. But one of the comments, man, and this like almost brought tears to our lead singer's eyes, man, was like the lady was literally lost. I think it was her brother on Christmas Eve. And if you ever lost somebody, man, losing someone is one thing, but like losing them around the holiday season,
Yeah.
whole nother story. And like, I mean, and she was like, yeah, this song is helping me get through that. And again, Call For Me is like, that's one of the new songs we just released, literally about that. When you're going through something, who do you call on? And the premise, the kind of like the secret deal there. Hey, this is Z Sean calling. The secret little thing there is that the voicemail that the girl leaves in the video is she passed away, and so it was funny in the comment section. The lady was like, yeah, I lost my brother. I listened to his voicemails, just to
Wow.
help me kind of get it. It's just crazy, man. So it's about why you're doing what it is that you're doing, and we get reminded of that all the time, man. So it's easy to push through.
What was the reason that you guys decided to take this not turn, but sort of the idea of we're going to turn around and offer a hand up to those who are maybe further behind us in their life story or what they're going through, and they're dealing with those things. Is that something all of you always were sort of like, if we could just get a group of people together who we all kind of gelled musically and artistically, that we could really do something to help other people? Because like the music's got to be good, record can't
Right.
suck, but then to then turn around and be like, but we want to take this opportunity to help others, like that's such a, you don't see that a lot, let's put it that way.
Well, I
I
mean, man, yeah. Go ahead, Trusco. Yeah,
I was just gonna say, I think that when I think about everybody in the band, that's kind of in everybody's blood of just like that's something that
exactly.
they're all about. I know Tu's family with urban specialists and with his father, Bishop Omar Jawar. Like myself, I used to work with a social emotional learning organization where we do education outreach. Now, I personally, I've always kind of had this belief. Friend put this in my brain, but just like being a musician on a local scale, you can kind of feel like you're a convoluted alcohol salesman, right? You go and play a small gig and the money's based on how many beers are sold. And I just
Mhm.
never liked that principle. Like I'm not anti any of those things, like playing at a bar or drinking or any of this stuff, but just the concept of I like the idea that music like can be in support of change, can be in support of a cause. And I think that that's something that we all connect on. I know Rudy's work with Midtopia and obviously Chase with all the Stand Together music stuff.
Right.
Um, so
I mean, to say nothing of also supporting the artists making that music. Like, listen, enjoy your Heineken, but also could you buy a shirt on the way out? Like, let's make this
yeah,
so everybody can kind of, make it to the next
absolutely.
gig and make another record and all of that.
Yep.
It's so yeah, the release date of all of this has been moved up, and this idea of we want to put this record out now. Is any of that due to what's happened in the past? I don't know, week or so?
Man, it was a tough decision, man. You know, when you got a lot of moving parts like that, it's hard to I won't say it's hard to be too light, right, in a moment like that, but it's hard to try to cut through the noise, you know, because again, we knew that Donald Trump was going to win. No, I'm just joking. No,
Yeah.
we knew that it was going to be a lot of noise. We knew it was going to be crazy, man. And that was a tough decision to make, was to say, you know what, man, let's release this like when we know um, there's going to be a lot of noise, but at the same time, probably needs to, you know, be released at that moment. To this is what needs to be out when it's so much other stuff. But I don't know, man. That was a tough decision, man. I don't know what you think, Trusco.
I mean,
Uh,
on a logistics level, I could tell you so many creators where just during the during the election, it's impossible for your voice to be heard when you're posting. So I
Hmm.
think, that's obviously one part of it. I think there is something too to, with a country that has been so divisive, like really being in a spot where we're apolitical. We're about being the change. We're about trying to like heal. You know what I mean? We're that's like a lot of what our focus is. And I think that, the data I think is more just focused on making sure that we're going to be able to share that with people and that they can hear that.
As it feels like, of all the time in the past few years to pick to put out something that really says to people, we understand this. We have a feeling we are there with you almost, and trying to keep that positive attitude when perhaps that's not everyone's attitude. Um, I mean, that seems like a very bold, almost revolutionary statement at times, to just be like, no, we have to stay positive. We have to help each other. We can't just devolve.
yeah.
I mean, it gets super heavy super quickly when you start getting into that. Does that feel like you're in conflict with putting on a really great show and helping everyone? A fun night out is not necessarily always conversations about, domestic abuse, all the other things that you talk about on your record. Like that's a thin line to walk on. We're
Yeah.
here to help, but we also want to make sure everyone enjoys themselves.
Now,
It is
yeah.
too. Yeah, you want to go ahead, bro?
For anybody listening and or watching, our show is it's not a benefit concert. I promise. All right. It's one thing our guitar player Chase always talks about, man. He's kind of like the nucleus, and he's the brain of, you know, kind of why we're doing, what we're doing, especially when it comes to tough decision making things, But that was one of the yings and yangs, was like, okay, how do you drive the message but still give people a crazy experience in a crazy show? I'm talking about a crazy show to where they're like blown away and really want to go listen to the music in the car, and then the message is kind of hitting subconsciously. You can't have it in the forefront, or it almost can be cliche, right?
Hmm.
It almost can be looked at the wrong way when it, especially in 2024, when it's all of the movements and the being woke, all of that kind of stuff, right? How do you let people know that it's really about the music and this is real? Not only that we've gone through some stuff, and it's, I mean, like literally one of my dad's sayings. I mean, shout out to my pops, that's Bishop Omar right
The
there.
painting up
Yeah.
there.
Sorry, yeah, I'm on the other
Yeah,
camera,
you're in
but
reverse. I get it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And he always says, man, if somebody else went through what you're going through and they made it, you can make it too.
Hmm.
When you don't have product, the one thing that'll keep you going is hope. So it's about that, but at its core though, it's like, okay, um, man, how do we, keep it exciting, keep this at the forefront, but still drive the message. And we're still playing with that. We haven't figured it out, I don't think, but it's a lot of fun. It's gotten better. We've gotten out of having videos that,
It,
uh,
it it's taken
like,
some time for sure to develop it, but I think or to keep going, bro. I'm sorry.
no, you about to go exactly
Yeah,
where, yeah, I'm Pat. That was the alley-oop. Yeah.
I think I
I'm
think
done.
um I think something that we've had to explore quite a bit of like how do you yeah how like what does a two lot show look like, how does it function, and I
Hmm.
think we've gotten to a really good flow where it's fun, it can be really wild, like there's a lot of really wild musically things are going on, we can get people really dancing, and then there's times where it can be, you know, we're taking people on a journey, you know, it's like it's very cinematic, so there's stuff that's very elevated, there's parts that are very, you know, mellow and introspective, but people seem to be down for the journey, and you know, every show we get better, every show we're learning about how do we want to express things, and one of the things, and I think it's fine to share this about the record, I don't think we're spoiling anything, but the utilizing voices, right, just quotes, you know, and we chose to use three quotes from three of the fathers from the band: Chase's father, Omar's father, and Rudy's father, and I think there's something to that of hearing something from another generation, and I think that that's something that's really strong, and it's something that doesn't, you know, it, people can hear it, people can understand it, people can resonate with it, and then we can move on, you know what I mean, you can move on and continue to enjoy the experience, you know, in another way.
Electronic jam music is what the press release describes your music as. Was that one of those things where you, after the fact, look back and go, I don't know what the hell do we call this thing? Or was that always like, this is what we're going to do, this is what we're calling it?
No, that's what it was. We were trying to go for that. And so that to me, um, man, was the more difficult part. I'll speak for myself personally because I don't come from the electronic world. You know, I studied jazz, studied Latin. You know, I was in an award-winning Latin American ensemble where we were dancing and doing the thing. And you know, Rudy's dad is like the Rudy Love Senior. That's yeah, the one
Hmm.
you sampled on American Gang. That's yeah. But it was like, man, we don't have that electronic element, and didn't really until we met Trusco, you know. But it was about like, how do we all, you know, get like kind of into that world and bring the best of the electronic world and then the very, very, very best of the jam world, where you're extending the solos, you know, you're stretching the songs, you're going deep, 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 you know, like Fish or String Cheese Incident. Shameless plug, we just did a show with them like 4 or 5 nights ago.
When
Crazy.
you have one of the guys from the group on the record too.
Yeah,
Yeah, we
Michael
got
Gang is
Michael
on here all
Kane.
the time.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like we were saying, Dallas, Michael Kang. It got Mr. Kang on the record, man. And then we jammed out with him too, at Garcia's, man, in New York. Not like, I mean, probably 4 nights ago, man. It was wild, bro. So, but yeah, it's a journey. You know, we're still figuring that out as well. But I think we're doing a good job. And on this first record, I think you will hear us trying to kind of explore with that. And in particular on a song called Human. That's where I think we really tried to just try to push the envelope with Greg Spiro and all of that. So yeah.
It,
What is it like? How do you, when you get the five of you into a room to make this, to write a song? Because do you all work together when you're composing and writing these things?
we've tried a lot of different processes, and yeah, and it's an interesting, it it's a very interesting process because everybody comes from different musical backgrounds. Two said something I kind of wanted to comment on before getting quite there, but like the electronic background thing, it's an interesting thing too because like my interest in electronic music and for example like Chase's interests are were not the same, and it's so interesting because I know a lot of stuff about the brain feeder artists and people like Flying Lotus, and I kind of came from music composition world where it's like, oh, I know how to make that weird goofy sound, that's this thing, like, so it's
Hmm.
a lot of those elements that I've kind of learned, and got more into like things with backbeats and hip hop adjacent music, and it's interesting because joining the band there's a lot of things where it's like, oh, I know that color, but I've never used that like this. Or like, I know that, you know, it's kind of like if you're looking at English, it's like, oh, I know that word, but I didn't know that meaning. Or I knew this thing, but I didn't know this part. So there's a lot of interesting discoveries that can happen. And I think depending on the song, the process has been totally different. So for example, a song like Call for Me started with, I think Rudy had an idea of the progression before we got into the studio, but it was him, me, and two and within 15 minutes we had like the basic shell of how the song worked. And then we kind of started layering on new ideas and stuff afterwards. But I know Rudy's a very quick writer typically. Like the first time I met the band, they were working on Arrow Time, and they had a few beds that they had worked on with a guy named Albert Harvey. He had kind of a lot of the initial seeds from the group. They had done collaborations with him on, and so they had this track with some chords working through, and Chase was like conceptualizing like, I like these principles and these ideas, and I want this to be about the concept of the Arrow of Time, and literally Rudy walked away to another room, and 15 minutes later he came in and he sang the thing. And I remember just being like, I was there to be teaching. I was like, what just happened? Like, this is wild. And then same thing with Two. I remember Two playing drums, and he was like, all right, I'm gonna loop this tempo. He just immediately nails it. He was like, all right, I'm gonna play this, and he just nailed it. And I was so confused. And then Sage had a song he had brought in where he had everything programmed out, and I didn't know that. And I was like, dude, who played drums on this? He's like, oh, I did all that. I was like, what, Doug? Like so it's cool because everybody in the group is capable of expressing themselves in a lot of different ways musically. So you have a lot of different methods for how songs start. And to jump all the way to Human was one of the ones where I think there was an initial bed that I think that might have started with an initial Albert bed, but I know he had started a process on it, and it was very big and there was a lot of stuff going on. And I wanted to do something kind of totally different. I really wanted it to feel like a complete dialogue between those two worlds. And so a few things that I had brought in, one was like arranging for a string quartet. And it was such a awesome experience working with Brian and her quartet. But I thought that would bring more of a human element. The song's called Human, right? And then the other thing is like, we had Two love Jay Dilla, love hip hop, and there's a lot of like the way things are placed is not specifically always on a grid in the atypical ways. Some things are pushed, some things are slowed back, some things are not consistent, some things are, right? And so coming into the EDM world, there's a lot of things where it's like it is on the grid. And even if you're playing it, it's like you have to hit it exactly right or it's going to get bumped later. And so the concept for the song was like, okay, so how can we make this have more human elements to it? And kind of have that. So one of the thoughts was like, Greg Sparrow, great friend of the band, wonderful, wonderful jazz pianist, is like, let's have him take a solo on this. So the beginning of it and the first drop is very electronic. And then by the end of it, we open up to this space that sounds like a jazz trio for like, I don't know, 8 bars, something like that. And he's taking a solo and Two's responding to him on the ride cymbal. And and there's strings playing and there's all this stuff. And to me, I feel like that's such a cool way of encompassing all those worlds. And that was each song with the band, we kind of have an ownership model. So you could kind of think of that as like the executive producer, the sense of like they call the final says on things, but they're not necessarily always doing every single part of everything. They're more of like, I like this, let me work with this person on this part. I like this, let me work with this person on this part. So you can kind of see it can get pretty complicated in our processes, but processes rather. But there's definitely, we've tried a bunch of different stuff. We've done weeks where the whole band is sitting and everybody's in headphones working by themselves. We've done stuff where we've jammed for an hour and then taken that and chopped a piece out of that and then wrote something to that. So it just depends. And I'm a big fan of, if you can't tell, trying different processes because you yield different kinds of results. If I work on something with Two, we're going to come up with something completely different than if you put me in a room by myself. And it's such a cool thing of like how those, dualities and quintalities or whatever. I don't know when you got 5 people, but you can end up, with a lot of different results. And it's so interesting because sometimes it's as simple as like, I went to the bathroom and when I came back, there's something totally different has happened, or vice versa. Somebody, went outside for a second, came back, it's just like, this is totally different. And it's like, yeah, we took the ship and we turned that wheel hard and it's cool. It's one of the beautiful things.
And it seems like you have to be able to kind of sublimate your ego to push everything down and know we're here for the art. This is the main thing. And musicians aren't always great at that.
It's definitely a challenge. I think that we've I'd love to hear Two's perspective. I'm sorry, I just jumped right in there. I think that we've worked really hard about learning how to communicate with each other, learning what each other needs, to feel like safe, secure, heard, understood. And kind of like one of my favorite things with this group is if there's any kind of beef, like we can squash it like almost immediately. It's like, hey, we're gonna sit down, we hash it out, we listen, and then we move on, and we make sure that whatever, you know, a person or the band or whatever like needs is being set up in a way where like this makes sense for all parties. And I have been in so many bands, like an infinite amount of bands. Like there's been a couple years where I remember writing this down. I played with like 72 different units. So I can't tell you how many times I've been in a room and been like, this isn't going to work because of this
guy. Yeah.
you know, or whatever. And in this group, like everybody is willing to, you know, cut off the ego. People are, you know, and have a discussion, understand things. We work through things. We keep developing processes, supporting one another. Like it's amazing. Two has been an amazing support for me. And I think I've been there for him too.
Vice versa, brother. You already know it. Yeah,
bro. Like it's important, bro. Yeah, please stop me.
Nah. I'll elaborate on the ownership model that Trusco was talking about. I've never in my life been in an organization, business, you know, side bar, right? My wife and I, we run a company. We've been growing since 2017, you know, but since I've been in this band, I've learned principles. I mean, shout out to Chase's pops, bro. You know, this book right here, bro, principle-based management, bro, has just been like one thing that we use as just our guiding, you know, and to give shout out to our big bro Chase for being like the one to always keep us on the rails with that stuff. Anytime, you know, I mean, because I'll forget, you know, and go back to my old ways in 2 seconds, man. But
of course, yeah.
You know, but stuff just like the ownership model, right? When it comes down to making tough decisions and being all in a room and making a song, bro, it's all about like, okay, well, who owns the song? Boom. It's just that simple when it comes down to making, you know, certain decisions or, you know, trying to get over a hump.
Entropy, the full-length debut album from Tulot, is available right now wherever you get your music. For more information, check them out online, the number 2lot.com.
Rock and Roll Grad School is produced by the Professional Production Company. Please be sure to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, because your impassioned review is just as honest as us standing backstage waiting to come back on for the encore. For more information, you can check out our website, rockandrollgradschool.com. And like everyone else, we're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram.
Today's show was recorded and produced by Heidi Hegquist and myself from our world headquarters located on the second floor of the professional office building, centrally located downtown. Our reluctant executive producers are John Sauvé and Sandy Stone. Our willing executive producers are Rachel Allen and Randy Jeanette. Our intern is Zach Jackson. This one's for Philippe. Thanks for joining us. Good night, drive safe, and may all your favorite bands stay together.
You can take